This presentation is brought to you by, as the slides will show you, APCUG. It's not being brought to you by a member in the club. This is an APCUG. The program person has requested from APCUG that a speaker, last month in Columbus, the speaker couldn't be live in person because of other issues. You, fortunately, have the live one and aren't going to watch it on a screen. But we have those two different kinds, or three kinds, live, over the internet live, and then video recordings. So we're going to do a video recording, and then we'll kind of get started. So you get to see behind the screens because I'm sharing the host's thing, and we'll get going on here. Hit the record button. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here to present to you. Today we're going to be talking about Windows 7 EOL, end of life, and what are your options. This presentation to the East Central Ohio Technology Users Club on the 16th of February in the year 2020. 20 years past the downfall of technology, and we're still here. This is in conjunction with the APCUG Speaker Bureau, and this is one of the many benefits of your membership to APCUG, which is only $50 a year, and you get tons of stuff for that. I am John Kennedy. I am the APCUG Regional Advisor for Regions 3 and 6, the Upper Midwest through the Upper Plains, and I am a member of the APCUG's Speakers Bureau. Windows 7, beginning of life. Hard to believe, but it came out back in 29. That means it's kind of 10 years old, and in computer, that's old. And just to let you know that the sales of PC installed with Windows 7 stopped back in 2014. We haven't had a computer that was actually came off the assembly line after the October 2014. The year before that was when stores were told by Microsoft they were no longer able to sell a disk with Windows 7. Windows 7 stopped shipping a year after 8.1 came out. So we go from that to the end of life. And actually the end of Windows 7 started back in 2015, a year after they stopped selling them and 8.1 was out. But during these past 5 years, you've been getting security updates, but really nothing else in terms of features, new things. Why? Because 10 had come out shortly after that, and Microsoft's big focus is on Windows 10. Now, come forward to January 2020, and you're not going to get anything at all. Not a speck of stuff. You won't even hear from Microsoft. Nothing. No security updates. No software updates. No browser update. You had stopped that a while ago because Edge stopped. Internet Explorer stopped a number of years ago. So what we want to do is look at your different options that you have. And I start with 0, partly because that's a computer. Computer things always start with 0, like your hard drive. It's really not drive 1, it's drive 0 is the first one. And that's because option 7 is to just stay and do what you're doing. Continue to run Windows 7. But understand, no improvements, no upgrades. But on the positive side, the software that works on Windows 7 will still work on Windows 7. But there are hackers out there that are still chipping away at XP and Vista and 7, and if a new security breach is found, Microsoft's going to say, tough luck. We've moved on. We don't support Windows 7. You deal with it. And you will deal with it. Because what's going to happen is other software is going to stop supporting Windows 7 as well. You will be at a risk whether you're online or offline. Because if you're Windows 7 and somebody gives you something that's on their thumb drive, there could be viruses and malware and stuff on the thumb drive, not necessarily coming from the internet. So you can disconnect from the internet, never put a thumb drive in, never put an optical disc in. But what good is a computer in 2020 that doesn't have internet access? And the other key thing is the software. My son is in a business where he uses audio programs for creating music and doing video auditing. And he has found out that the software he uses on his Windows 7, he can still use, but it's an old copy. And Microsoft said, or the Adobe says, we're not going to make a new version compatible with Windows 7. You have to use old stuff. You can't do that in your business. So, option 1 now. You can move to Windows 8.1. Remember, that's the one that came out after the bad Windows 8. We don't even talk about 8. Now, it will cost you between $100 to $154 to get a copy of Windows 8.1. Hard to find, but it's on the internet. Because remember, at a certain point, Microsoft says stores can't sell them. Well, somehow Amazon can get around that and sell it from an individual. Only problem is your present computer, because it's kind of old, because it's a Windows 7, it might not be supported by Windows 8. The specs you have might not do it. And you might not want to spend the money to upgrade your computer so it can work with Windows 8.1. The desktop and interface is different than Windows 7, so you're going to have to learn to do things a little bit different. But you can also tweak it to make it kind of look like Windows 7, so it's not as bad. But then you run into the problem that Windows 8.1 end of life comes in 3 years. And you're back in the same problem of an operating system that is no longer supported. Option 2. You can recognize that logo. You can upgrade to Windows 10. Upgrading to Windows 10, you have to purchase a disk, $130 to $200 range. And again, your present computer and software might not be supported by Windows 10. And again, you'll need to spend money to upgrade parts of your computer. And you might not want to spend the money. So another slight option, and that slide's out of order. You can buy a new computer with Windows 10 on it. But your current software might not be compatible with Windows 10. You don't want to have to learn a different workflow in desktop on that Windows 10, because the design in desktop is a little different. Let me move back one slide. Now we're back to the other slide. One got out of order. That happens, you know. And luckily we can edit this part out of the video. Upgrading to Windows 10. Upgrades come every 6 months. Every 6 months we've had to upgrade Windows 10. And it wasn't a simple update. It's a major upgrade. I still swear it's an upgrade because it changes. I learned something just recently that the bills, and those are the ones where it's like 1804, or 1803, 1809, 1903. The recent one was 1909. In another month, we've got 2003 coming out. These builds only have an 18-month life expectancy. Wait a second. Microsoft said this is the last Windows that you'll ever have to buy. But they didn't tell us that we have to upgrade. So you can wait 3 builds, but then you have to upgrade or your computer will not work, because they do not support those. So right now, I learned this because somebody had a computer that was not been updated in a year, and the message popped up and said, this version will no longer be supported after November. The other thing is, it's an unwritten, a computer that's 10 years old probably will not be supported by Windows. They feel that old of the hardware and stuff, they're moving with Windows 10 to be modern computers. So you might have a perfectly working computer, but if it's about 10 years old, it probably won't work with Windows, so you'll have to buy a new computer, upgrade a lot. You might be concerned about the lack of control over Windows 10, if you've ever looked at that and you've seen how many privacy things and that and settings and all. You might be concerned about that. And of course, you don't want to spend any money because your computer is working fine. So there's the slide that was supposed to be, buy a new computer. Cost you hundreds of dollars. Computers aren't cheap, but now you'll have support for about 10 years with the new computer. But your device is connected to that computer. Your printer that's old, your scanner that's old, they don't always work with the newest editions of computers and Windows 10 operating. So you may have to go out and buy new devices. There's a fourth option. Take a bite out of the apple. Have to learn a slight new way of doing things. None of it's real big, but it does a different way. The Apple people had a different way of thinking the workflow and whatever. One negative side is that you always have to buy your devices through Apple, because Apple has the market on anything connected to Apple. And one thing too is that when new models come out, they come out with new connectors, so you have to go out and buy new connectors, or you have to buy new stuff. I just worked on a laptop, setting it up for somebody. It did not come with a CD drive. That's been a while, because who uses the discs anymore, because thumb drives. It did not come with a VGA, which is that blue one with all the pins. It only comes with HDMI. Not a problem. I have a monitor that does both, so I can work on either way. And then when I was working on it, it said, we're trying to set up your wireless. And I'm going, I don't want this person's laptop on my wireless. I go to take the cord, and I'm going, there's no place to plug in the internet. It has to be wireless. Times are changing. Cables, connectors are changing. My son's Apple or iPad has a different connector than mine, and they're only a year apart. So he can never charge his at my house. He has to bring his own charger. All right, so you can buy a Mac Mini. Minimum cost is $800. And guess what? That doesn't include a keyboard, a mouse, or a monitor. Add those and it's going to cost you $1,800 for that Mac Mini. You can get an iMac. We had an iMac back here once before. That's the all-in-one. You got a keyboard and mouse, and then the monitor has the hard drive in it, the plugs in it, everything's in it. Which means that if something kind of goes bad in it, you've got a real problem. That'll cost you at least $1,100. But you can do that. I know that some of you have that money that I don't have. And there's a fifth option. Fifth option is to migrate to Linux. On your current computer, Linux won't cost you anything. It runs on old hardware and runs on new. Access to hundreds of free software. And the neatest part about it is that you can test it out without doing anything to your Windows computer. You can put a disk in if you have an optical drive and boot to it and run Linux. You can do a thumb drive and test it out, and it won't even hurt your computer. It doesn't do anything, and you can test it out. Gives you great control over your computing experience. That's the number one thing about Linux. No one controls it but you. Support can go for years because a new edition of Linux can come out that's free and you just keep working. Open source and most secure because being open source, everybody can see all the code. And if anybody tries to sneak something in, somebody finds it right away and gets it fixed. There are many different versions, or we call them distributions of Linux, not like the one version of a Windows or a Mac. If you don't like the version of Linux you're running, there's a ton of others to choose from. You don't like Windows? No choice. Actually, Linux can be set up to look very much like Windows if you want it to. So what is Linux? This is Tux. That's the logo. He's hanging back over there, overseeing everything. Windows has the windows. Close the windows and take a bite out of the apple. So this is Linux Tux. It's just an operating system, very similar to Windows and Macs. It's an offspring of Unix, and some people have heard that's from long ago. And somebody modified it to create Linux, and the Macs went that route too. It's been around since the late 80s. Actually, it was born in 1991, which was the same time Windows 3 came out. And think about how long ago some of us were using Windows 3 and 3.1. Linux has been around since then. The first major use of Linux was back in 93 when Windows 3.1 came out. So the big question is, well, why didn't I know about it? Linux is free. If it's free, where does the advertising money come from? Windows isn't free. They have lots of money for advertising. And they got the businesses hooked into Windows, and business got home users hooked into it, or schools, and then schools got home users into it. Now, with cars, you have lots of choices. You can see the three major Detroit guys, and they're different distributions of cars. Like in General Motors, the Chevy, Pontiac, Olds, Buick, and Cadillac. All cars, all made by General Motors, but slightly different for different people's interests. Same thing for Ford and Chrysler. More choices. The Hondas, the Toyotas, and you can name more. Some have come and gone. My family car when I was growing up was an Oldsmobile. It's long gone. I switched to Pontiac. It's long gone. The Plymouth is long gone in the Chrysler. Controlling the purchasing power. With Linux, there are choices too. These are the three original distributions or versions of Linux: the Slackware, Debian, and Red Hat. And from each of those came others. The reason for that is that Linux being open source, the recipe for creating Linux is free to use. I could make a Linux if I was able to have that talent. No. Ken could do it, probably. So people take the recipe for Slackware and make their own little version, like you do when you get a recipe at a potluck, and you say, I can make that one better. The asterisk for RHEL is Red Hat Enterprise.
Long term?
Nope.
Nope.
Enterprise Linux.
Oh.
And it's a paid one. Linux doesn't cost anything, but enterprise people want tech support, so they pay for tech support. So RHEL is a paid tech support version of Linux. The Linux is free. So CentOS, they're the same, but you're paying for tech support. And there's others, Arch, Gentoo, and there are others. And some have come and some have gone. David might create a Linux, and after a while he says, I'm too tired to deal with it. It's a lot of work, so it drops out. Might have been a good one, but then maybe David says, I'm tired of it, but John says, hey, I'll pick it up and keep going with it. So they come and go. No big deal. And with Windows and Macs, no choices. How do you work Linux? I've heard that it's hard to use. I use a keyboard. I use a mouse. I click on the menu icon. I click a category and pick a program. I can run the program. I can click on shortcut icons. I can run multiple programs at the same time. I can go to the software store or the software center, depends on what they call it, and I can get whatever else I want for free. If I have something I don't want, I can get rid of it. I just can't get rid of anything that's part of the main operating system. Different than with Windows, there are programs in Windows that you cannot remove. I do just about everything that you would on a daily basis, just like you do in Windows. What does it look like? Oh, I've heard it's got eyes in the back of its head, horns on it. Looks different. Well, Linux starts with a desktop environment, which includes all the stuff that's in front of you. Your program for file managing, your window thing it opens up, your login screens, your menus, your colors around the windows, your panels, your icons, and a lot more that I don't want to take the time to list. Now, Windows has a choice of either professional or home. And the looks are the same. There's just some extra software that's paid to be added to Pro that most of us home users don't even need. But Linux is tailored to fit age of your computer and how you work with the computer. Do you have an old Pentium processor and want to bring it back to life? There's a Linux distro and a desktop environment for that. Do you have a real modern PC and love to endlessly customize and tweak the desktop? There's a desktop environment for that too, and a Linux. Do you prefer the more minimalism and behavior of a Mac? I don't know what that is because I don't use a Mac, but there is. There's a desktop environment and a Linux distro for that. Want something that doesn't remotely remind you of either of the Windows or the Mac? Desktop environment for that. There are probably at least a dozen or more different desktop environments. And you can pick just about any of them to go with your distro. Sort of like, you can pick any of the cars and put them with whatever company that makes them. It's possible to install more than one on your computer, on your distro. This computer will run two different ones, a very, very minimal one, or the one I have, or I could add another one if I wanted to. And I just, at the login screen, I say which one I want to run. Some desktop environments were even wild. They took some from column A and some from column B and put column C together, and a totally different kind of desktop environment, taking what they thought was the best of both. Most distributions come pre-installed with everything you would need right out of the box. And every software that we have in Linux, there are about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different programs that are the same style, and you can say, I don't like this one, but I like this one. And you can do it. So let's take a look at a few examples of what these desktops look like, so you can see that there are changes in them. They go from the very simple to what can be very complicated. XFCE is one of the original ones, and you can see very plain. Handy dandy. There's a button right up here at the top that's your menu. And you have your normal things over here. There's the calendar, and there's your volume, and there's your internet, and that tells me that that's your battery. That's it. Somebody who doesn't want anything cluttered. This type of desktop runs really well on old machines because it doesn't take a lot. Has a menu. The difference is in most Linux menus, they're in categories. Categories, and then it tells you in that category. One question I've had from somebody when we were in a computer class is, when programs are alphabetically listed, how do I know which one I want to use for this particular project? Well, here, if they're in categories, at least you can start there and say, oh, internet graphics, here are the programs that do that. This one is called KDE Plasma, which sounds like, something in Star Wars and Star Trek. And this one is the one that's the opposite end. This one can be so customized and have so much going on it. I haven't learned to use it yet because it just has so much. But boy, oh boy, if you want to be playing around, you got a computer, it will work. And it, again, has a menu, but a little bit different because you have sub-choices down here to get to what you want there. Some people like that, some people don't. This is the GNOME desktop. It's kind of towards the top. And this one is very minimal in that this button right up here at the top, it says Activities. If you don't click it, all you get is an empty screen. If you hit a certain key, all it pops up is a little box that you can type in what you're looking for, and boom, it'll come up. If you click on that Activities, here's your favorites listed here. And this button down here is the universal one for like more, and that's your extra programs. So here are the programs. What I don't like about this, personal, is that it's all in alphabetical order. So you have to go through the alphabet trying to find what you want because it's not in a category. Mate is a middle of the road. Again, has a taskbar at the top and a bar at the bottom. So you can customize. Has a menu system where you've got the categories. On the right side. Yeah, categories and then what's in there. This just shows you a typical window like you open in Windows. That's like the control panel, only it's called Administration. Here's another menu, different, same Linux Mate, but this version has a menu that has all of your places, your system, your favorites, and then if you want all your applications, you can click that. A lot like Windows XP had. It had the first screen, had all your favorites, and then the second screen, all your programs. So very similar, but this is nice to be able to get to certain parts of your computer easy. A brand new one, Pantheon, said we're going to totally do something a little bit different. It takes an idea from the Macs with a little conky or a bar down here with icons. You can add, remove those. And this one, it's interesting. They have a double menu. One is in alphabetical order, one is in categories. So if you're a person that I know all my programs, put them in alphabetical order so I can find them, or click and say I want to see them in categories. And as you see here, oh, we're using a web browser just like we do. Happens to be going to Google. Here's the file manager, just like we do with File Explorer in Windows 10 or Windows Explorer before that. Another new one, Budgie. Totally a new one. And this one has a new pop-up menu, very similar to some others. Find the category, find the program. But they have a very unique pop-out that comes out with a lot of controls for it. There's your calendar, your sound, your internet, notifications. Designed something for people to use. So we've looked at a number of different desktop environments. We're not necessarily going to look at Linux because Linux is Linux. Just like cars are cars. I can go to an airport, go to the rental, get a car, and for the most part I can drive it. I might have to check to make sure where some controls are. And the first time I couldn't flip the rear view mirror at nighttime, it just drove me crazy. I said, oh, this is broken. Ooh, it dims by itself. As we skimmed these different desktops, I hope you saw something that you liked and could work with. And you have, I'd say, can you honestly say it's that much different? So what we're going to do first, to end the tape part, is we're going to take a look at my Linux in action. This is not maybe the one I would start a beginner on transferring. My choice of distro, and we all have our own choices. If you talk to David, you talk to Ken, you talk to John, we all get our own choices. My choice currently, and I can switch, they're free, I can switch as much as I want, is MX Linux, just to make sure you know. It's based on Debian, which is one of the founding ones. I'm using an XFCE desktop. Now, my big desktop at home is not the newest one, but it is powerful with RAM and a processor and everything. And I use XFCE because I like the way you can customize it. So if it works great on old machines, guess what it does on new machines? Whoa! Got to hold it back. It's a very customized one because it was customized by the people at MX, and I've added some customized tweaks to it. I'm still tweaking it, and I'm added some software maybe because it came with everything. So, by the magic of Switch, this is my Linux, MX Linux. I have background, just like you do in Windows. I can change it just like you do. I go right click and I change it. When I do my right click, you'll see a lot of the stuff that you have in Windows. There's a few things that are not Windows, but don't worry about that. But desktop settings, open new windows, I can create things right from the right click. This computer, or this operating system, like a number of others, their menu was on the left. And I added the one on the right because I wanted to be able to do some customizing. Windows can move, so I'm not going to say this is something unique. If you didn't know it, your taskbar can go to the bottom, the top, the left, or the right. It wasn't important years ago when we had square monitors, but now that most of our monitors are widescreen, we have more room this way than we do this way. And when you have your taskbar at the bottom or the top, you're taking away what I call real estate. Extra real estate is here on the sides. Try it one time. Move your taskbar to the right and say, wow, I got all this room now. So on the left-hand side, this is the original one. There's my program, which is a little X for MX. And when I pop it up, you can see, well, there's my categories, and there's what's in each category. When I first got MX, the categories were on the right. I'm left-handed. I put it back over on the left. Your choice, my choice. And here are all my, didn't need to pop that open. Sometimes my finger clicks, just by force of habit. And because we are connected to a projector and stuff, it's going slow. On this side are all of the icons I feel are my most important shortcuts, just like you would put on the bottom of your taskbar. This is my status bar and my system bar. It has the clock, and there's my calendar, just like you got. Get out of the way. There. My internet, little icon for that. My volume. Oh, this is neat. Here are my two cloud storage connected right to my system panel. There's the one for Dropbox, so I can get files from up there, put them in there, and a different cloud service I have called pCloud. My battery for my laptop. On the right-hand side, these are all my addings, because there wasn't even that toolbar. And these are my secondary programs. You can see there's my document, and there's my virtual box. Everybody that I work with, there's my team viewer and Skype. And then these are my desktops that show me what's running. And then, of course, there's my trash can. As you look at this, does it look any real big difference than running a Windows computer? I can't speak for Mac, but I don't think it's that much difference. There's my file manager, just like File Explorer. Only I like this one because it divides things into my places and all my folders, and I can add my own choices over there. So basically, that's what Linux does, and I work it just like I did in Windows. Most of the programs that I use are the same programs that I used in Windows. So there's really nothing big difference about that. I want to thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you, as a Windows user or a friend of a Windows user, can see that you have options for moving forward. You have options that cost you money, options that won't cost you money. And hopefully, the biggest take is that you have a better understanding of what Linux has to offer. If you have questions or comments that you want to send to me, you may get a hold of me at that address. And if you enjoyed this presentation, which was a benefit of APCUG, kind of let them know back at the Speakers Bureau that you liked it and you want more videos and more people added. Please let us know what topics you would like that aren't listed on our site. Thank you very much.
Ready for the applause?
I'm going to stop sharing, which means I'm going to stop on the Zoom, because we were running Zoom to get that recording. And let me close that out. Okay, because we're not quite done yet. Leave the meeting for everybody. Now it's test drive time. I'm going to need a volunteer from the audience. And I'm going to pop up, read the second one. I'm going to pop up a Linux distro that you haven't seen. And I want somebody to come up here and say, wow, this wasn't that hard to do at all. So I will, and this is kind of neat because I'm switching desktops. Windows can now do that, but Linux has been doing that for decades. And so I'm just going to switch. And we're going to fire up. And this is called a virtual machine, which means that I can run it inside of my computer. Whether it's a Windows machine or a Linux machine or a Mac machine, I can run a second one inside. So, I have this, it's called Linux Lite. It's a very good one for lower computers, for older computers. But then again, it works great. We have people who use it even though they don't have old computers, they just like the desktop environment and the flow. So it'll come up here in just a second. So who's going to come up and do this? Mary Frances has got her hand up.
I want to ask you a question while you're
Okay, now's the time for questions. Take the recordings off.
While you're choosing between all those volunteers.
Yeah.
I'm very nearsighted. Did I see a VirtualBox icon on the left and the right side of your screen?
Shouldn't have.
The third one down on the left, what is that?
Okay, I gotta get out of.
Oh, well, then
No.
You don't have to.
Yeah, we'll look at it when we get done because no, it should be two of them on the right. Because the program and then it's in the desktop that I'm using. Hey, login screen, just like you have at home. My login is VBox with a capital VB. And who's going to come up here and help me out?
Don't everybody?
Oh.
You take visitors, I'll do it.
Okay, great. Your sister would be proud of you because she probably would have if she had been
I
here.
might get a little nervous, so I'm going to take this off if I'm
That's fine. Hey, you're up here with me. And when you have a teacher like me, it's no problem. I had somebody call with a computer problem, and me being on the phone, the problem was gone. First thing you'll notice that one of the things that's a real benefit of like Linux Lite and a few others, they've got a welcome center that has lots of things that says you want to do this, go through these steps. So go ahead and close it out because we don't need that box. The mouse is right over here. I got a mouse. I hate touchpads.
Close it. Okay, close right
Yeah.
there. There we go.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to ask her is, can you pop up your menu so we can see how it's designed?
Oh, right there.
Woohoo!
Look there.
Oh,
No.
nope. You hit yeah. Close that out.
Close somewhere.
X out.
X out. Where's the X?
The top right, just like it is in Windows.
Well, it's littler.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's because of that device that makes it littler. The screen's big. Okay, now there's menu.
So you know what? I clicked on the box beside it.
You're right. See, this is nice. It just says menu. All right. What I'd like you to do is, can you find? I want to type a letter, so I need a word processing document. Can you figure out where I'd go to get that?
Office? No?
Yep.
Office.
And look at that. This one being one of the best ones for new people. It says right at the top, new document. Once you get comfortable, you can change that and say, use the real name, which is Libra Writer. Okay, go ahead and open that up. Click on it there.
New document?
New
Or
document.
Office? Oh, new document.
Yeah. See, we're using LibreOffice, but a lot of us use LibreOffice in Windows.
Is it still on?
There.
Okay.
And there she can go and type up her thing that she needs.
Can you transfer Word documents to, like if you did this?
Absolutely. In fact, the LibreOffice in Windows could open up doc files that Word couldn't in the beginning. Because it was a new version and the old version couldn't read the new version. Dumb. But Linux or the LibreOffice read it right away. Yeah. Okay, go ahead and close that one out. The white X this time. This takes you back to what LibreOffice has as their main page that shows you what I've done recently. You can go ahead and close that X out. I want to go on the internet. We need to go on the internet. Can you figure that out for me?
Do you use Firefox?
Yep. Firefox is the most dominant browser in Linux.
Do I double click?
Just single click.
Yeah.
Yeah, give it a second. You can see
okay. Oh.
it working around.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll probably end up opening two, but that's okay. All right, and so you can see Firefox. Some of you have been using Firefox for a long time, so nothing different there. All right, close that out. I want to go to my pictures folder and look for a picture of somebody in here.
Control panel?
Could be,
Maybe? No.
but we have a folder.
Um,
Yep, that's it.
the blue one?
Yep. Microsoft has a folder. It's a yellow one. This one happens to be blue, but you can change the colors. Let's go. There's a picture I want everybody to see. That'll take two on this. Double click as usually. And go into 2016. I think it's there. And then February of 2016. See, they put all your pictures in calendar order, and 11. Go ahead and go that one. Middle picture.
Ooh,
Look at those two people.
wow.
That chair almost blends. All right, what else do you do on a computer? We can close that out. And close that one out. What do you want to see or do?
If you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, is there anything better than LibreOffice to get at that?
This presentation today was made with LibreOffice.
But I haven't found a lot of the variations in that program like I did with the regular.
Give me an example, because I always want to know what that is.
Well, like your themes across the top that showed the normal PowerPoint
Let me borrow
and
a second. Just do
fonts and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, let me go in. So we go to the menu, and we go to Office, and we go to Presentation. There's the beginning themes. I can get back to them anytime I want. LibreOffice has the real neat thing that it has a pop-out menu with everything you need. Now, if that's how your screen usually looks, look for that little bar with the triangle, and that pops out, and this is a menu of all your tools that you need. Let me open up, I can't do that on this one. I can't do it that way. Let me go back to it. Recently used. All right, make it easier for the presentation. And here's all the layouts.
You can put your own photos in there too, right?
All those photos that you saw on mine
Yeah.
were copied and pasted in.
Okay.
Didn't even have to do insert, just copy and paste. If you go, let's see, layouts, background, this one doesn't have any yet. If I want to go to change my background for the theme of that, I can change that. T for all my styles and formatting. If I click on a box, I usually go to there's my transitions, if you want to do transition between slides. But usually on mine, if you click there, then you get the page that shows all of your, there we go. Change my fonts. All my word processing tools are there. Indents, bullets, all there.
Okay.
I will say I'm not an expert on Office because I won't pay for it. I don't have money to pay for it. There are probably some things in here or in Office that aren't available here, but I've been using LibreOffice since it was Star Office back in the early 2000s, and I haven't missed anything that I needed here. Probably because I'm ignorant, not knowing what I don't have, but I've been doing my presentations. All right, anything else you want her to find? Don't save.
How do we play music?
Oh, I want to play a song I've got in here.
Oh, sure.
My
Let's
music
see.
folder. Two ways now. Let's see. Let's go to my menu. And no, I don't have it on here because I have it right here. There's the file folder again. And there's also one on the desktop. So you can put stuff on the desktop or you don't put stuff on the desktop.
Music.
Yeah. Double. Two.
I did.
Yeah, but it's that on the folder. There we go. That's the hardest part of a mouse is that you're learning that double click. THX wave. For those who used to go to the movies a long time ago when this was the big sound at the beginning. And right now I would have to go through and change the sound from my computer to the virtual one. But it played. VLC, that's what most of people use in Windows because it's the best video audio program out there. It's what we call cross-platform. So that's how I do it. Play the, just click on the one you want to play. Anything else? Yes, John, and then David.
There is one thing that I've always wanted. I love Linux, you know that. The only thing is when it comes to April 15th, that's when I get a little bit aggravated.
Okay, go ahead.
TurboTax will not run on Linux.
Is that Linux's fault?
No.
Okay, so don't get perturbed at Linux. You're perturbed at the company because they won't make a version. Now, there's a way you can do that is you can make a virtual Windows machine and run it on that. Or see if there's a tax company or program that will work on Linux. Send an email to TurboTax that says, I'm no longer using it because you won't support Linux. But yeah, so that's a problem. Adobe is a problem. I don't even think it's a problem because I can't afford Adobe products. If you can, fine. Run Windows and pay for that. And right now I can't do Microsoft Office because Microsoft doesn't want, and they know they wouldn't get a lot of business because who's going to pay for a paid program when you've got LibreOffice? Rumor has it they're talking about getting one, but no way am I going to put that on my Linux machine because their code won't be open. So, good job. Anything else? Yeah, David, that's right.
Well, first to comment on John's question about TurboTax. An alternative might be to go to an online tax prep service. You can go to some websites where you can do your tax through the website. So that might be an option since TurboTax won't work with Linux.
And David, I would support that because that's what I do. I have a tax that I like, and it won't have a downloadable executable program, so I do it online. And it's free. Go ahead, Dave.
Now my question was, if for people who use Microsoft OneDrive for cloud storage, can you access that through a Linux distro?
Yep. If you would go to the APCUG and go to the Linux tips that I send things, I just posted or will be posting that you can put a client on Linux that will connect you to OneDrive.
Okay.
Now, of course, my answer would be stop using OneDrive because that belongs to Microsoft and they're reading everything you've got. So, but it's very similar. As you saw, I'm going to shut this one down because it won't let me get to mine. So that's a full working Linux. It's just running inside mine. Because now I can switch back to. There's my Dropbox, and there's my pCloud, and they are just programs that have installed on Windows. I could probably connect my Google Drive and using the software would install, and then I can connect to OneDrive. And there was another one of those programs where somebody had created this software and they got tired of doing it, so somebody else picked it up, took the free coding, and moved on with it. Kenneth?
There's too many Kens.
Yeah.
I wanted to share a story with you guys. I am very much and very happy with my Apple Mac OS side. It's my preferred platform. I would say I'm most knowledgeable on Mac OS and OS 10. Then next would be Windows. Probably more so Windows 7 because that's what I supported. Windows 10 would fall in line. Well, I ran across a unique situation with two different clients at this point. The first one was more of a test drive for me. I said, I'll do the work for free. Let's do an experiment. Let me find a version of Linux that will install on this old computer that it was 15 years old. It was pretty old. And let's see if it works. So we did it, and I went home and did my research, installed a bunch of different desktop environments as we discussed earlier. Found one that looked the most similar to Windows 7. Gave it to him, and I said, here's my number. Just play with it. Gave him a few tips. I didn't know what I was doing. And I said, call me if you have any issues. So a month and a half went by, and I went, wonder why he hasn't called me yet. So I stopped by, and I said, is everything okay? Oh, yeah, and everything. The only thing that didn't work was this. And so we picked a different distribution that didn't have so many updates. It was more stable. And ever since then, he's been fine. The other situation was a nonprofit that just didn't have the money to buy 2 new computers. And I said, I have found a version of Linux that looks the most like Windows. Let's try it. And I only ran into one problem. It was an Avery label we downloaded, and I figured out what the issue was. I opened it on my Mac in Microsoft Word. It was poorly formatted. So I fixed it. I formatted it correctly. I used to be a Microsoft Office certified expert, so teaching, I don't remember what the title was, but I knew my way around Office. I fixed it, opened it up on the Linux computer, everything was fine. I know enough to be dangerous in Linux, but I don't know enough that I'd have to support them, yet I have deployed 3 instances of Linux at 2 different businesses, and they love it. It's running faster. So you can buy a Mac. I still will probably buy a Mac down the road when I save up my pennies. But you can take those old computers and reuse them, and really it's so similar that they haven't even noticed the difference.
So, the program today showed you that there are 5 different options, from sticking and using Windows 7 to upgrading to 8, 10, buy a new computer, or migrate to Linux. Linux is free. Try it. You might like it. And as I said, you can run Linux alongside of Windows 7. We can put them side by side, and then when you start the computer, it asks you, do you want to do Windows or do you want to do Linux? And that way you've still got your Windows, but Linux reads all the window files. Windows can't read Linux files, but that's okay. Also, I wanted to point out when we talk about what's going on, all of you that have Android phones or Android tablets, which is anything that's not an iPhone or an iPad, that's a version of Linux. Google took the recipe, or not Google, whoever all did it, and took the recipe and made it into Android. And Google's doing the same thing with their Google operating system. Oh, that's right, that's Chrome. Chromebooks. In the school district that Bill and I retired from, every kid in the high school and middle school, they haven't got down the elementary yet, have they?
I don't know.
Yeah. Every student in the high school and middle school are running Chromebooks. They don't run Windows anymore. Chromebooks are so much easier. I recommend for any of you people that all you do is internet stuff, you get a Chromebook. Security is better, easier to use, and you're just doing all the stuff that you do without worrying about viruses and malware and stuff like that. It's out there. You just don't see it. And because there's not the money, you don't see the publicity, except from word of mouth by people who use it. Ken, anything to add?
Just, I guess it's not important to us, but just know that You hear about supercomputers and all that. Your universities, the labs, supercomputers that you hear about in the news and stuff, 99.9% of them run Linux. They don't run Windows. They don't run Mac. Mainframe computers nowadays almost exclusively run Linux.
So many of the websites you go to when you're on your Windows machine and you go to some, you're going to a Linux machine to see all that stuff that's on there. Mary Frances, quickly, I'm back to that screen where you said something about 2 virtual boxes.
1, 2, 3, 4. What is the 4th symbol down on the left?
Starting with the green.
1, 2, 3. That one. What is that?
Good question.
I can't see it.
It's squiggly line.
Isn't there one right there on the right?
That's a white squiggly line in a blue box. This one is my update notification. Whenever that green line, which green is good, turns red, I have updates.
Fine.
And then that, yes, there are 2 squigglies, but this squiggly is the same squiggly as that, which is VirtualBox. So I have, an update pops up and tells me.
You can change those too, can't you?
Oh, the squiggly?
Yeah, you can change the icons.
Yeah. I think I had a choice on the squigglies, was a lock maybe, or a box. I like the squiggly.
The other thing, you said anything that Windows has, Linux can read.
Yes.
So my wife, she's got a lot of big fish games that are made for Windows.
Games, well, we're talking something different. Those are proprietary programs, probably. But I'm saying, anything that's made, any documents that are made by almost any document program, because there's more than Windows. Word, people don't realize there's a whole bunch of other document making programs. Linux can read, LibreOffice can read them. It's not Linux that does it, it's LibreOffice.
So I can't get those games into my Peppermint.
Not necessarily, because if you go, you might be able to install Wine and run Windows games in Wine. So it's like a virtual box, only it's creating an environment that lets window programs. It's Wine, W-I-N-E, and the other one is a program that goes with it to make it easier to play on Linux. So that lets you play a lot of those Windows games on Linux if you're a gamer, or you check into a program called Steam. Steam has hundreds and hundreds of games.
Yeah, some of the games have a Linux version, so you might want to check that game and see if it has a Linux version of it.
Yeah. And that's it. In my son's work, he uses a program for music or audio editing called Reaper. It's a free program, but it's not. You can evaluate it forever. Because after 60 days, you just reinstall it and you got another 60 days. But I found out there is a version of Reaper for Linux. So if I'm going to help him do some editing, I can do it on Linux. I don't have to do it on Windows. It just depends on the developer if they want to support one of the up and coming. Because I really believe that more and more people, as they find out about Linux, will make the move to Linux because of all the points I put out and their money. I don't have the money to do all this. I'm retired. We all have a little fixed income. I don't need to have money on top of this, on top of that. So yeah, check that. Mary Frances, then Ken?
Me first?
Yes, ladies.
Do I remember from an APCUGVTC program, do I remember the fact that the guy who did a program on Chromebooks, one of the cautionaries was all Chromebooks are not created equal, and that you might want, if it was important to you, that some Chromebooks had a place for a CD and some did not. Don't I remember that?
Okay, that's not Chromebook. That's the manufacturing of the hardware. the company chose not to put a, see what they do is, the operating system is one thing, the hardware is another. See, this laptop used to run Windows, now it runs Linux. So,
Okay.
this happens to be a Lenovo, that was the one I got on sale, I wouldn't have bought it.
So,
It comes with, but the computer that I just fixed up for that gentleman, when I put that other operating system on, I could have put Linux on it, but I wouldn't have had an optical drive, I wouldn't have had a VGA, and I wouldn't have had an Ethernet port because the manufacturer of the hardware chose not to. So it's not Chromebook, it's the manufacturer of the device that Chrome put to make it a
so
Chromebook.
that's what I have to remember if I'm going to run and get me a Chromebook, right?
You have to decide what you want. Why do you need it? Why do you need an optical drive?
And the other question I wanted to ask you,
Come on.
if everybody is as stupid as I am, you gave us all those choices. If you have Linux, you can choose this or this. But if you have little to no information because you're not familiar with it in the first place, how do you know which one to choose?
We have laptops that we can loan you to take home. We are here 2 Fridays a month. And anybody who's a Linux person will be glad to show you
That's
what you want.
that's what I wanted you
Yeah.
to get on tape.
Yep, every second and fourth Friday, and we have people come in and find out about it. Every once in a while we have a Linux fair in which we can put a different Linux on every computer, and you can come in here and sit around and try them out and see what you like. Dave, Ken?
Yeah, as you were talking, it occurred to me when you mentioned your update. So we've all seen the Windows message, don't do anything on your computer while it's updating. That's not so in Linux. You just keep right on going while it's doing the update.
And at the end of the update, Microsoft says you got to shut down your computer and restart it again. Linux doesn't, because Linux says we can fix everything that you're not using, and then we'll wait until you're not using that program, then we'll update it. Whether it's tonight, tomorrow. If you're going to be constantly using it, we'll wait. John, we've got to quit up here.
If I wanted, I can do this, but I don't do it. But I could just run the virtual machine on my Linux machine and install Windows 10 on it and run TurboTax.
Correct.
I could do that on my machine because it's the Steve Reeves of computers. It'll run anything. But if you had a puny machine that you'd put Linux on because it didn't have the
Power.
guts to run Windows.
Right.
You couldn't do that then, could you?
No, because in a virtual machine you have to share. I have to tell virtual machine how much of my RAM can you use to run this. My desktop has a Windows 10 virtual machine because when somebody like Jerry calls me and says, I got a problem, or Joanne would call, I can pop up Windows 10 and figure out what they need. I had, you have to give Windows 10 at least, 4 gigs of RAM to be able to kind of run. My old laptop only has 4 gigs, so I could never do it on that one. I could probably do it on here and give it 3, because this one's got 6.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm getting fed up on it. I can't get it.
Okay?
Okay.
If you have any questions, we've got people here. Thanks so much.